To James Boswell, Esquire. Dear Sir, why should you importune me so earnestly to write? Of what importance can it be to hear of distant friends to a man who finds himself welcome wherever he goes, and makes new friends faster than he can want them? If, to the delight of such universal kindness of reception, anything can be added by knowing that you retain my goodwill, you may indulge yourself in the full enjoyment of that small addition. I am glad that you made the round of Lichfield with so much success. The oftener you are seen, the more you will be liked. It was pleasing to me to read that Mrs. Aston was so well, and that Lucy Porter was so glad to see you. In the place where you now are, there is much to be observed, and you will easily procure yourself skillful directors. But what will you do to keep away the black dog that worries you at home? If you would, in compliance with your father's advice, inquire into the old tentures and old charters of Scotland, you would certainly open to yourself many striking scenes of the manners of the Middle Ages. The feudal system in a country half barbarous is naturally productive of great anomalies in civil life. The knowledge of past times is naturally growing less in all cases not of public record. And the past times of Scotland is so unlike the present that it is already difficult for a Scotsman to imagine the economy of his grandfather. Do not be tardy nor negligent, but gather up eagerly what can yet be found. Footnote here on this fact from Boswell. I have a valuable collection made by my father, which, with some additions and illustrations of my own, I intend to publish. I have some hereditary claims to be an antiquary, not only from my father, but on being descended by the mother's side from the able and learned Sir John Skene, whose merit bids distance to all the attempts which have been made to lessen his fame. And now back to Johnson's letter. We have, I think, once talked of another project, the history of the late insurrection in Scotland, with all its incidents. Many falsehoods are passing into uncontradicted history. Voltaire, who loved a striking story, has told what he could not find to be true. You may make collections from either of these projects, or for both, or opportunities occur, and digest your materials at leisure. The great direction which Burton has left to men disordered like you is this: be not solitary, be not idle, which I would thus modify: if you are idle, be not solitary. If you are solitary, be not idle. There is a letter for you from your humble servant, London, October 27, 1779, Sam Johnson. To Dr. Samuel Johnson, Carlisle, November 7, 1779. My dear sir, that I should importune you to write to me at Chester is not wonderful when you consider what an avidity I have for delight, and that the amour of pleasure, like the amor numai, the love of money, to quote Juvenal, increases in proportion with the quantity which we possess of it. Your letter, so full of polite kindness and masterly counsel, came like a large treasure upon me, while already glittering with riches. I was quite enchanted at Chester, so that I could with difficulty quit it. But the enchantment was the reverse of that of Circe, for so far was there from being anything sensual in it, that I was all mind. I do not mean all reason only, for my fancy was kept finely in play. And why not? If you please, I will send you a copy of an abridgment of my Chester Journal, which is truly a log-book of felicity. The bishop treated me with kindness, which was very flattering. I told him that you regretted you had seen so little of Chester. His lordship bade me tell you that he should be glad to show you more of it. I am proud to find the friendship with which you honor me is known in so many places. I arrived here late last night. Our friend the Dean, Thomas Percy, has been gone from hence some months, but I am told at my inn that he is very populous or popular. However, I find Mr. Law, the archdeacon, to the bishop, and with him I had breakfasted and dined very agreeably. I got acquainted with him at the Assizes, Assizes, Assizes here, about a year and a half ago. He is a man of great variety of knowledge and common genius, and I believe sincere religion. I received the Holy Sacrament in the cathedral in the morning, this being the first Sunday in the month, and was at prayers there in the evening. It is divinely cheering to me to think that there is a cathedral so near Anlach, and I now leave old England in such a state of mind as I am thankful to God for granting me. The black dog that worries me at home I cannot but dread. Yet as I have been for some time past in military train, I trust I shall repulse him. To hear from you will animate me like the sound of a trumpet. I therefore hope that soon after my return to the northern field I shall receive a few lines from you. Colonel Stewart did me the honor to escort me in his carriage to show me Liverpool, and from thence back again to Warrington, where we parted. There's a footnote here. His regiment was afterwards ordered to Jamaica, where he accompanied it and almost lost his life by the climate. This impartial order, I should think, a sufficient refutation of the idle rumor that there was still something behind the throne greater than the throne itself. In justice to my valuable wife, I must inform you she wrote to me that as I was so happy, she would not be so selfish as to wish me to return sooner than business absolutely required my presence. She made my clerk write to me a post of two about two after to the same purpose by commission from her. And this day a kind letter from her met me at the post office here, acquainting me that she and the little ones were well, and expressing all their wishes for my return home. I am more and more, my dear sir, your affectionate and obliged humble servant, James Boswell. I don't know what this black dog they keep on mentioning is what's dreading Boswell at home. Anyway, going on. To James Boswell, Esquire. Dear sir, your last letter was not only kind but fond, but I wish you to get rid of all intellectual excesses, and neither to exalt your pleasures nor aggravate your vexations beyond their real and natural state. Why should you not be as happy at Edinburgh as at Chester? In culpa es animus que se non effugint usiquam. The true culprit is the mind, which can never run away from itself, to quote Horace's epistles. Please yourself with your wife and children, and studies and practice. I have sent a petition, it says here in a footnote, requesting me, that's Boswell, to inquire concerning the family of a gentleman who was then paying his address to Miss Doxy. And that person was James Susanna Patton. Anyway, James Johnson says, I have sent a petition from Lucy Porter, with which I leave it to your discretion whether it is proper to comply. Return me your letter, which I have sent, that you may know the whole case, and not be seduced to anything that you may afterwards repent. Miss Doxy, perhaps you know to be Mr. Garrick's niece. If Dean Percy can be popular at Carlisle, he may be very happy. He has in his disposal 2 livings, each equal and almost equal in value to the deanery. He may take one himself and give the other to his son. How near is the cathedral to Anlach, that you are so much delighted with it? It is, I suppose, at least 150 miles off. However, if you are pleased, it is so far well. Let me know what reception you have from your father and the state of his health. Please him as much as you can, and add no pain to his last years. Of her friends here I can recollect nothing to tell you. I have neither seen nor heard of Langton. Beauclerk has just returned from Brighthelmston, and I am told much better. Mr. Thrale and his family are still here, and his health is said to be visibly improved. He has not bathed, but hunted. He has not bathed, but hunted. That's what it says. At Boltcourt there is much malignity, but at late little open hostility. It says see page 1007. I think I'll avoid that for now. I have had a cold, but it is gone. Make my compliments to Mrs. Boswell and etc. I am, sir, your humble servant, London, November 13th, 1779, Sam Johnson. Okay, I'll look at page 1007. I'm curious now. What's the hospitality at home? So where are they talking about here? Bolt Court. I always look at these things and then they're never helpful. I don't really see anything here about Bolt Court. There's something about how Williams hates everybody. Levitt hates Desmoulins and does not love Williams. Desmoulins hates them both. Pohl loves none of them. So maybe that's what it's referring to. I don't know. And once again, that was a waste of time. All right. On November 22nd and December 21st, I wrote to Johnson from Edinburgh, giving a very favorable report of the family of Miss Doxy's lover, that after a good deal of inquiry I had discovered the sister of Mr. Francis Stewart, one of his amanuenses when writing his dictionary, that I had, as desired by him, paid her a guinea for an old pocket book of her brother's which he had retained, and that the good woman, who was in very moderate circumstances, but contented and placid, wondered at his scrupulous and liberal honesty, and received the guinea as if it sent her by Providence. Then I had repeatedly begged of him to keep his promise to send me his letter to Lord Chesterfield, this is the Johnson, and that the memento, like Delenda est Carthago, Carthage must be destroyed, to quote Plutarch, must be in every letter that I should write to him, till I had obtained my object. Now a new year. It's 1780. Johnson is around 71 or 70 at this time. In 1780, the world was kept in impatience for the competition of his Lives of the Poets, the completion of his Lives of the Poets, upon which he was employed so far as his indolence allowed him to labor. I wrote to him on January 1st and March 13th, sending him my notes on Lord Markmont's information concerning Pope, complaining that I had not heard from him for almost 4 months, though he was 2 letters in my debt, that I had suffered again from melancholy, hoping that he had been in so much better company. The poets, that he had not time to think of his distant friends. Oh, okay. Let me read this again. That part. That I had suffered again from melancholy, hoping that he had been in so much better company with the poets, that he had not time to think of his distant friends, for if that were the case, I should have some recompense for my uneasiness, that the state of my affairs did not admit of my coming to London this year, and begging he would return me Goldsmith's 2 poems with his lines marked. His friend Dr. Lawrence, having now suffered the greatest affliction to which a man is liable, and which Johnson himself had felt in the most severe manner, I wonder what that means. Johnson wrote to him an admirable strain of sympathy and pious consolation. Maybe that's his wife's death, I'm guessing. To Dr. Lawrence, dear sir, at a time when all your friends ought to show their kindness, and with a character which ought to make all that knows you your friends, you may wonder that you have yet heard nothing from me. I have been hindered by a vexation and indecent cough, for with which within these 10 days I have been bled once. I have bled once, fastened 4 or 5 times, taken physic 5 times. I don't know what that means. Maybe seen a doctor 5 times. I don't know. I gotta look up what physic means back then. Physick. So he's taken physic 5 times, and opiates, I think 6. This day it seems to remit. The loss, dear sir, which you have lately suffered, I felt many years ago, and know therefore how much has been taken from you, and how little help can be had from consolation. He that outlives a wife whom he has long loved sees himself disjoined from the only mind that has the same hopes and fears and interests, from the only companion with whom he has shared much good or evil, and with whom he could set his mind at liberty to retrace the past or anticipate the future. The continuity of being is lacerated. The settled course of sentiments and action is stopped, and life stands suspended and motionless till it is driven by external causes into a new channel. But the time of suspense is dreadful. Our first recourse in this distressed solitude is, perhaps, for want of habitual piety, to a gloomy acquiescence in necessity. Of two mortal beings, one must lose the other, but surely there is a higher and better comfort to be drawn from the consideration of that providence which watches over all, and a belief that the living and the dead are equally in the hands of God, who will reunite those whom he has separated, or who sees that it is best not to reunite. I am, dear sir, your most affectionate and most humble servant, January 20th, 1780, Sam Johnson. I don't know why he threw in that last line. But, heaven forbid something bad happened to me. You could do worse to get a letter from Johnson in response. To James Boswell, Esquire. Dear sir, well, I had resolved to send you the Chesterfield letter, but I will write once again without it. Never impose talks upon mortals. To require 2 things is the way to have them both undone. For the difficulties which you mention in your affairs, I am sorry, but difficulty is now very general. It is not, therefore, less grievous, but there is less hope for help. I pretend not to give you advice, not knowing the state of your affairs, and general counsels about prudence and frugality would do you little good. You are, however, in the right not to increase your own perplexity by a journey hither, and I hope that by staying at home you will please your father. Poor dear Beauclerk, nec ut solis debis joca, nor wilt thou play any longer as thou art wont. From Hadrian's Annumala Vagula Blandula. His wit and his folly, his acuteness and maliciousness, his merriment and reasoning are now over. I guess Beauclerk died. Such another will not often be found among mankind. He directed himself to be buried by the side of his mother, an instance of tenderness which I hardly expected. He had left his children to the care of Lady Di, not Lady Di, Princess Diana, I don't think. And if she dies, of Mr. Langton, and of Mr. Leicester, his relation, and a man of good character. His liberty has been offered to sail to the Russian ambassador. It says here in a footnote, Mr. Beauclerk's library. Oh, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. His library. I thought that sounded weird. His library has been offered for sale to the Russian ambassador, and it says here, Mr. Beauclerk's library was sold by public auction in April and May 1781 for 5,001 L's, whatever the L is. Is that pounds? I don't know. Seems like a lot. Dr. Percy, notwithstanding all the noise of the newspapers, has had no literary loss, says it in a footnote, by a fire in Northumberland House, where he had an apartment in which I have passed many an agreeable hour. Back to Johnson's letter. Clothes and movables were burnt to the value of about £100, but his papers and I think his books were all preserved. Poor Mr. Thrale has been in extreme danger from an apolitical disorder. Apopolitical, I guess, is epileptic disorder. It's APO dash, whatever. Apoplectic disorder, and recovered beyond the expectation of his physicians. He is now at Bath, that his mind may be quiet, and Mrs. Thrale and Miss are with him. Having told you what has happened to your friends, let me say something to you of yourself. You are always complaining of melancholy, and I conclude from those complaints that you are fond of it. No man talks of that which he is desirous to conceal, and every man desires to conceal that of which he is ashamed. Do not pretend to deny it. Manifestum habemus furem. We have caught the thief in the act. Oh, I almost was able to translate that one, because I remember furem is thief, and habemus means had, I think. Manifestum must mean doing something. We have the thief doing this thing, maybe. Make it an invariable and obligatory law to yourself never to mention your own mental diseases. If you are never to speak of them, you will think of them but little. And if you think little of them, they will molest you rarely. I don't know about that, Johnson. When you talk of them, it is plain that you want either praise or pity. For praise there is no room, and pity will do you no good. Therefore, from this hour, speak no more, think no more about them. Your transaction with Mrs. Stewart gave me great satisfaction. I am much obliged to you for your attention. Do not lose sight of her. Your countenance may be of great credit, and of consequence of great advantage to her. The memory of her brother is yet fresh in my mind. He was an ingenious and worthy man. Please to make my compliments to your lady, and to the young ladies. I should like to see them pretty loves. I am, dear sir, yours affectionately, April 8th, 1780, Sam Johnson. So I guess, did Mr. Stewart die then? Because it says here, I guess, I'm going to have to look that up. Mr. Stewart's dead too. All right, till next time, bye from Boswell.